Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So we're going to get started. Again, my name is Tanya Cantlow-Cockfield, and I'm the Assistant Counsel to Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, and I'd like to welcome you to our June 19th Borough Service Cabinet meeting, which is our last meeting before we break for the summer. We have 3 presentations today, so before we start with the presentations, I'm just going to quickly take the roll. Community Board 1, Gerald Esposito. Community Board 2, Robert Paris. Community Board 3, Henry Butler. Okay. Community Board 4, Celeste Leon. Community Board 5, Melinda Perkins. Community Board 6, I didn't get your name. Mike Resio. Okay, Mike, thank you. Community Board 7, Jeremy Laufer. Community Board 8, Michelle George. Community Board 9, is there a representative here? I think so. Community Board 10, Josephine Beckman. Present. Community Board 11, Marnie Valias Pavia. Present. Community Board 12, Barry Spitzer. Community Board 13, Eddie Mark. Present. Community Board 14, Shauna Lisa Campbell. Here. Community Board 15, Laura Singer. Here. Community Board 16, Viola D. Green Walker. Here. Community Board 17, Cherie Frazier. And Community Board 18, Dorothy Turano. Okay. So our first presentation is with DoITT, and Kate Blum is here. She's the Assistant Commissioner and over External Affairs. She also has a few of her team members that she will introduce.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Tanya. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. Okay. I feel like very official behind this thing. I am Kate, and I am here with my colleagues Will Brown and Gentiana Ame from DoITT. I am the Assistant Commissioner for External Affairs and Communications, and I just started DoITT about a year ago. And I know other people from our shop has been here at Borough Service Cabinet. This is my first time, so thanks for having me. I just wanted to give a quick update on a couple of things happening in Brooklyn, and I also want to note that I am a Manhattanite by birth, but a Brooklynite by choice, so it's nice to be among my people. So a couple quick things going on in the borough that we think that you'll be interested in, and then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. Okay, so hello, we went through that already. So Link NYC. So as you guys know, DoITT is mostly a sort of internally facing agency. We only have a few projects that really directly provide public services, but when they do it in a really sort of gigantic manner, and Link NYC is the most visible version of this. So I want to deliver to you a short update on Link in Brooklyn. I want to talk to you a little bit about the 5G service, the super fast cell phone service that we're working to bring across the city, and then we'll have a few minutes, like I said, to answer questions. Okay, so a quick reminder about what we do. So we work with more than 100 city agencies and other entities, day in, day out. What these guys do, the team that they're part of, are the people who are working with everybody from DHS to finance to borough presidents, et cetera. And so even though we are kind of one of the more sort of secret agencies, I feel like, in terms of the public who doesn't know us quite as well, it's safe to say the city probably couldn't run without the things that we do. Okay, so starting with Link NYC. So across the boroughs, we're at nearly 1,700 links. I'm going to assume everybody here has probably seen one before. I don't know if you've used one before, but they have been going up at a very steady clip, and we are seeing crazy usage. I mean, people are really, we're in the 3rd year, people are really starting to get it and to understand sort of what they provide. And it's not just about the Wi-Fi. We're seeing now the highest number of phone calls. You can make free domestic calls off of links, more than 250,000 every month, which is amazing that that many people's phones are out of batteries or something and need to make a phone call off of a link. And then these stats are just a little glimpse of how you can see the growth. So this time last year, we had just under 1.8 million subscribers. 1 year later, we have over 4 million subscribers. So if you think that if there are links in your district and you think people don't know how to use them or like don't know what they're about, this tells us that when people learn how to do it, they get really into it. We would be happy to come and present on how to use a link and all of the great features that it offers. And then just a very quick index of some of the high points. So free domestic calls, you actually can charge your phone, or your tablet, there's a USB dock there. There's access to social services through an app called Aunt Bertha on the tablet, so you can put in customized information, or your district residents, about what are you looking for? Are you looking for housing? Are you looking for short-term financial help? And then it'll map you to local resources within your district or your zip code. Obviously, access to 911 and 311. And then something we started doing the last year, which we're so excited about, and I really hope you will all take us up on, is we can advertise your community board meetings. We can advertise your committee meetings and your full board meetings on those big side panels. You just have to email and give us all of the information, and then we'll put it on the links if you have them in your district so that more people know what's going on. I don't know if you guys struggle to get attendance, probably not actually, but if you want to widen your audience, this could be a really helpful way to do it. And then the last thing I also want to flag is we've started a new campaign on the links to give free advertising to local small businesses. It's called Link Local. So it's the same email address, hello@link.nyc, and there's a very short form, what's the business name, we'll design the ad for them, it will run for 30 days for free. And if you think about how much the JetBlues of the world pay for that same airtime on the sides of the links, we think it's a really valuable resource for small businesses. So if you get in touch with us at that email address, we can send you examples of what it looks like, and people seem to be really liking it. So I hope you'll take advantage of it. Okay, so this is Link's progress in Brooklyn so far. So just so that everybody knows, this is a 10-year build out. So we're only in year 3. So if this looks like there's a lot of Brooklyn left, yes, there is a lot of Brooklyn left. So you can see, I'll just step away here. So in North Brooklyn, you can see it's already going down several of the main thoroughfares here. In the last year, we've really been pushing east, and this is really a priority to kind of keep pushing east, going into Brownsville, pushing towards East New York, and then we're going south, down Nostrand Avenue, down Flatbush Avenue, and then we're going to be working with our partner, City Bridge, to get farther south. We know there's demand in South Brooklyn. We know Coney Island wants links, for example. We put in touch with Councilmember Traeger's office about that. And then we'll also continue to push down here towards Sunset Park also. We recently renegotiated the contract with the vendor that requires them to give us better citywide comprehensive planning. So if you have questions about when your links will come, we will have a better answer to that probably within the next couple of months. So that same, you can email me. I'll give you my email address at the end of this presentation if you'd like to discuss a timeline for links in your district. So total of 241, and then there's 18 more that are in the ground and are hopefully going to be turned on really soon. Okay, so here's another thing. So I don't know if you guys ever walk around and you're like, I have no bars, I have no service. So the way that you get service on your cell phone is from these wireless installations, which are either on private buildings or on light poles and utility poles. So the city controls the light poles in all over the 5 boroughs, and we operate a franchise with companies who we release these poles to so they can install the wireless installations on them to get service. But what's happened in the past is that the city has said, okay, well, here's 1,000 poles, put them anywhere you want, and of course they all go to Manhattan below 96th Street because that's where they think they're going to get the densest. That's where they're thinking all the money is. But this administration has not actually accepted that. So what we have done over the past year is we are telling people where they can and cannot put their wireless installations, and we are pushing them to do them in Brooklyn, in Queens, in Staten Island, in Manhattan above 96th Street, and in the Bronx. And that now, for the very first time ever, there are more of these light poles that have been reserved outside of the central business district than within it. We just released an RFP for a new generation of companies to put these wireless installations on the poles, and we basically are telling them up front, just so that we are going to be making sure that you are pushing into the parts of the city and bringing this super fast 5G service that we're just on the cusp of to like all New Yorkers. Like it's no longer acceptable for you to just go to like 34th Street in Manhattan and just kind of throw all your best equipment up there. So if you feel, I don't know that you guys ever get any of these complaints, but if you feel like there's bad service in your district, bad cell service, that's something that we want to know, because we're going to be very specific with these companies about where they can and cannot put their technology. So even though DoITT is like very esoteric and sort of like hidden, like we do have our secret ways that we try and, push a fairness agenda all across the city. Okay, that's it. So I didn't want to kind of come at you guys with sort of too much stuff. I did, of course, want to answer questions. I think we have about 10 minutes for questions. So I don't know if anybody has questions about that or anything else. Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Celeste, District Manager, Community Board 4, which covers Bushwick. Pardon my tardiness. I'd like to comment that I'm very happy there's a way to advertise on Link NYC, local events. And I also have a question in terms of the turnaround.
Yeah.
So if we're emailing from our office, is this something that can happen within a week, within a certain period of time?
Yeah, typically it can happen within a week. We would prefer a little more time if possible, but we will do it absolutely as fast as we can, and typically we can do it within like 5 business days.
Okay, and then the standard, I know you mentioned for businesses, it's 30 days to advertise for their business, but in terms of up until that event, and then it's...
Yes, then we would pull it down. And, we can't do anything political, which doesn't really influence you guys, but like we couldn't do a, vote for this council member or go to this rally or something, but community board events are inherently non-political in nature, and so if you're having a summer block party or whatever, that's 100% the kind of thing that we could get up on the links for you.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Eddie Mark, and I'm the district manager for CB13 down in Coney Island.
Hi.
Hi. We understand we're all the way down in southern Brooklyn, and my question is, whatever the timeline is for us to get it, is there any way of getting portable towers? For special...
For Wi-Fi?
Yes, for Wi-Fi. I mean, especially
Right.
during the 4th of July and the half marathon.
That's a great question. I don't know, but I would be happy to look into that for you. I know that for some special events, like at the US Open, for example, or for New Year's Eve in Times Square, we often throw up special equipment on behalf of the city. Those are like gigantic things, but it shows there is some capacity, so I'd be happy to circle back. I'll just grab your card before I go.
Thanks.
Hi.
Yes, all right. I think it's really great that you have the at birth feature. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to know, when someone goes on and they get information about the services that are close to them, is there a way that they can probably email that to themselves? Like, how does that feature work?
The only reason I'm hesitating because I'm only like 95% sure that you can email it to yourself. I know that from the link directly, you can email the organization, you can contact the organizations, but I can't remember the button, if there's a button that says like, send me a copy or something like that. But there's one right outside Borough Hall, so maybe on my way out, I'll just check and I can just send you a note and let you know.
Okay, and does it require any personal information to be inputted?
It does not. It does not. I think that you can elect, if you decide to contact, say, a specific organization, like this is how you can reach me, but there is no requirement for any personal information of any kind. It asks you, what are you in need of right now? And you can opt to share as much or as little as you want.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure. Yes. Oh. Yeah.
Community board offices, thank you. We've been requesting for a very, very long time a constituent services program in our offices. Are there any plans to provide that to us?
You mean like a software solution to manage constituent services?
Yes.
Like a CRM? That is a really good question. I don't know, but I will find out for you and I will contact you directly.
That's not good enough. We've been requesting this for years.
Yeah.
And we've had DoITT here, and they always are going to get back to us. So I don't know what the impression what impression you had about coming here, but that this was the idea all along, so we can get concrete answers to when we're going to get a CRM in our offices, because it's been ongoing for years now, no response, and we always get, we'll get back to you, which never happens, and we really, really need it. The link is fine, but our offices help hundreds and hundreds of residents each day, each week, and this is really, without this program, it's really making it hard for us. So, getting back to us, I mean, we should have been at a point where you're getting back to us on a date with a rollout, not on when this is gonna get back to us on if something like this is even in the works. Should have been in the works for a long time already, and we don't seem to be able to get an answer when we're gonna get it.
It's yes, I understand your frustration. It sounds like you've been waiting a long time. I'll need to. It could be because I am somewhat newer. I will familiarize myself with the nature of this request. I can understand the need for this for sure.
That's part one. Part two is we've been asking for the actual Outlook application instead of logging on to the web-based system of Outlook
Right.
in our offices. Any movement on that?
Yeah, so this is one that I am aware of, and we have recently renegotiated new citywide procurement vehicles that allow the entities that we work with to purchase these things at a much, much, much reduced price, because you know this kind of stuff, Office 365 can be very expensive. So this was just negotiated, so we're finding out what the price would be for community boards and other entities who want to purchase that, and then I can share that with Tanya, and she can blast out to all of you guys if you want to purchase this.
Where do I sign? I want to purchase it today.
Don't have a piece of paper for you to sign, but I will. But as soon as we figure out what the cost is, and if you decide that you want it, which sounds like you do, we can make sure it happens as quickly as possible.
How about a CRM?
Well,
Can
yeah.
I give you money to? No, seriously.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you.
Do you have programmers that, or outside companies that we can give you money to get us a program?
Mm-hmm.
If DoITT's not willing to do it, we're willing to pay for it.
Right. Okay. Good to know. Can I follow up with you specifically about budget and things like that? And we'll see what we have available for you.
All right.
Thank you.
And I think that all of us here would contribute to that. I can't impress upon you, there's been tremendous technological advancements that are being made, and we're really trying to keep up. And not having a basic management system to deal with our emails, which is incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
To do an archive search is painful.
I heard about
it. It
this.
should not be. It really shouldn't be. And
Yeah.
you know what? We're on those of us who are on cb.nyc.gov, email. We do so because we get the support services from DoITT, and we appreciate that, but it hinders our work.
So Tanya sent me this query on Friday, so I've been diving into it ever since, and what you said is actually very important. The more you guys are willing to come together and say, we all need this, and we all can somehow contribute to it, the easier it's going to be for us to provide it. It's very difficult on an ad hoc basis to be like, this board wants this one wants this, because we save everyone money when we can purchase it sort of whole hog. So, but I hear you guys loud and clear on the CRM. I wish I had better personal knowledge of the history of this request, and I absolutely will circle back to you to let you know what the options are, the ways that I should say that DoITT can help specifically.
And we can help you with that background information. We've kept, records of meetings we've had,
Great.
discussions we've had, and I'll search through my file, and I suspect my colleagues would be willing to do
Yeah.
the same, just to give you more context than what you seem to have walked in with today, because I think there was an expectation that this was going to be the meat of our conversation with
I
you.
understand, okay.
We perhaps maybe even ought to follow up with, rather than a presentation meeting, a working meeting together,
Right.
so we can identify really the crux of what is needed. Because
absolutely.
I think it's a plenty. What is needed is plenty in
Yeah.
terms of technical backup for websites, for archival systems, for service delivery, record keeping. We all do it differently, and I think that there's probably a great template that would help us all be able to just keep it so that it's transferable from person to person, place to place.
Right, that makes sense. And I should say, I am sure that colleagues of mine at the agency, I know this is not lost somewhere. I think that I've just taken it upon myself personally that I think I just don't know the history of the request.
I mean, just to go back a little, I mean, we've asked for what's called council stat, right? And that the council uses. And we were never told we can't get it.
Right.
DoITT should just say, you can't get council stat, here's the reason you can't get it, and we'll move on. But
it's the limbo that's hard, right? Like nobody giving you a definitive one
I
way.
don't know. I mean, I'm already talking to an outside contractor on my own, to an outside vendor, to see if they can do the program for me.
Yeah.
I mean, no answer from DoITT. It's always, we're going to get back to you, which never happens, and it keeps going on and on and on. And meanwhile, the work is getting more and more. Residents rely on community boards a lot, and they do it more and more. And there's just no way of keeping track of anything.
Sure.
And going back to the email, I mean, just you mentioned the archive search. I'm just, not getting bumped out of my email while writing an email, and trying to log in 10 times before I'm able to log in again. It's crazy.
Okay, so
Any of you guys have the problem?
I do. I don't use it.
yeah.
I mean, they just bump us out, and let alone if we're in the VPN system, then you just have to authenticate again and again and again because it conflicts. Let's say you're in the SAPO system and you're in the email system. I mean, they just don't like each other at all.
Barry, you can't be in the VPN and use Outlook Web.
What?
I said you cannot be in Outlook Web and be in the VPN at the same
Well,
time.
I'm able to if I authenticate,
Well, I've never been able to.
but then it kicks me out. But
Yeah.
even if I'm not on the VPN, it keeps kicking me out.
That sounds horrible. And yeah, I do think that this Office 365 will probably be an important leap. Going back to the CRM discussion, and to a point that you made, which is really well taken, there is a question, an open question right now of what exactly will DoITT provide directly to community boards versus we will connect you with the vendor with whom we've negotiated a contract so you can get it more cheaply, or we can make a recommendation about where you can go for something. And I understand that no matter what the solution is, you just want our support and guidance and counsel. That
Just
makes
point me in the
sense.
right direction.
Right.
Listen, we are up to the end of we're up to the end of the fiscal year now. I can speak from my budget. I have some money left, which I'm willing to spend on this.
Yeah. All right. So
Okay.
let's get it done this month.
And
I
sure.
mean, to figure out exactly what the right path forward is, and knowing that, I mean, obviously you've all,
And to the all,
you've
just
expressed this
to-
many times. Everybody wants this. That's very helpful.
Just to I don't know if the boards are aware, but we're getting an increase,
Yeah,
a budget
42,000.
increase.
Mhm.
So boards will have some money. If
I mean, it's certainly an opportunity for us to really look at our technology services and, with open data and so much availability to us to really use data to manage our districts and to understand what our needs are.
Yeah.
I mean, there are programs I would love to have, mapping
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah.
I have fellows that are in, grad school and they're using their school systems to do mapping projects for us that have really benefited our board.
Mhm.
I would love to have that availability and that technology service. I just can't begin to tell you how frustrating it is.
Yeah.
Just from a basic email
Oh, gosh.
system to not having a CRM.
Mhm.
I think our lives would, and it should be there, and I just don't know why it hasn't. So we have some opportunities now,
Mhm.
and I think working together, we should be able to
Yeah.
get past this big bump in the road.
Yeah.
On that note, actually, would DoITT have the capacity to provide more trainings to community boards for things like
Like
GIS
open
system
data?
or SPSS and stuff like that
Mhm.
to assist us with not only having access to the data, but then
Right.
grappling with bigger data.
Right, how to sort of use it and manipulate it. Yeah, I know certainly for open data, absolutely. And other topics that you're interested in, I'm thinking about GIS. We, in particular, we
yeah,
do
mapping,
have
I'd
have
love
someone who does GIS trainings. The best way to funnel these requests to us, just so that you guys know, is as many boards as want this kind of thing, if you can let your borough president office know, and then they will work in constant contact with them, that'll be a one clean line for us to communicate with everybody, instead of like, I wouldn't want to be concerned that like we're getting something to 14 that 12 also wants and whatever.
Yeah.
So please be sure to, I don't know if Tanya's the right person or
make it
somebody else.
efficient.
And yeah, and if we have someone to do those trainings, like another one that we would love, absolutely love to help you guys get is a cybersecurity training. Now that we know that this is like the next kind of frontier of a lot of stuff, we're developing with New York City Cyber Command some basic steps that, you know, municipal entities can take to protect themselves. And so that's another one that we would be interested to
Can I
deliver.
follow up with you on that, though? I mean, right now, we're being advised to download free malware. I mean...
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
that really what your suggestion to us still is?
You're being advised to download free malware by a city entity?
Yeah, but do it.
Do it.
Okay, I don't know who's telling you to download malware, but they should not. They should not do that. Maybe, yes, I'd be curious to know what you're receiving, so that we can understand where that's coming from. I just want to give you.
So is
I'm
there
sorry.
something we might have access to provided by the city for security?
So New York City Cyber Command is coming up with a number of tools, including a tool called, let me see if I can remember what it's called, Quad 9, which will protect your DNS servers, for example, and they'll help you kind of install that in the system that you're using, whatever your internet connection is. So yes, there are tools that are available to you, and we're supporting, Cyber Command is now its own entity, but we're supporting them, and we can make the connections so that you get everything that's available. They're also coming out with an app, just so that you guys can advise your constituents, that people can download that will be free to protect their phones, because more and more of these cyber attacks are coming on mobile. So we can make sure you get the information on that.
Okay. There are a few other things, like you wanted to move on so I can go back, but...
I do need to conclude, I'm so sorry, but here is my contact information. I would advise you guys, I think the pattern we need to set going forward is to really operate through the borough presidents, but you can copy me so that I know that like you're sending something in, and that's my contact information at the top. We want to know all of your requests so that we can give you a direct, clear, and forthright answer on how we can or maybe cannot help with any given one. The last thing we want is for you guys to be like waiting and never be getting an answer, and I'm sorry you've had that experience so far. Hopefully this will be the beginning of some sort of shift in the tide.
And I just wanted to say something, I guess, in your defense, because I did try to prepare her as much as possible. That's why I did send an email out to everyone with questions, and with me being new in this role, I don't know the history, as well.
Fair.
So I will make sure that I work with Kate to get the answers and solutions to
Yeah.
your questions.
We understand the work, the value of the work you're doing, and however we can support it, we do want to.
The other glitches that I was thinking about are, having to downgrade some systems because everything is Windows 7. Are there plans to upgrade there? And in our internet browsers, we're required to use Explorer for so many city functions, and I'm wondering
Right.
if there's a
9,
plan to expand.
version 9.
Sorry?
I think it's
Windows?
no, Explorer.
Explorer, oh, yeah. I wasn't even
And
talking
if
about...
the browser
yeah.
updates automatically somehow, everything gets messed up. Yes.
Okay, so you're saying that your Explorer is automatically updating while the OS, the operating system, is
No,
not
we're
updating?
required to use 9 because something doesn't work with the 10 is no because the VPN doesn't work with 10. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So there's that disconnect. Got it. Okay. I don't know that DoITT right now has any plans for specific upgrades, but this is another thing where we may have a citywide contract that you can elect if you choose to, and we can give you the price quote to upgrade, and it'll be at a vastly reduced price from what it would be on the open market. So that's something else I can circle back to. Yes, of course. Let's see, I'm trying to think of my icon when I turn my computer on. I think so, yeah, I think I'm on 9. I think I'm on 9 on my own desktop.
And you're using Windows 7 as well?
Yes, I believe so,
But
but I don't know for sure.
But for email, you're using the Outlook 365.
Right, exactly. We have the full version of Outlook, so that's something that you guys don't have. You're all using the web app. I mean, when I use the web, I feel you. Like when I use the web app to log on remotely, like I don't think I've experienced quite the volume of the difficulties you encounter, but I definitely know what you're talking about. It's happened frequently enough that I can imagine how frustrating it is. So, just trying to, am I on 7? I don't know. I don't know if I'm on 7, but I think I am. We think we are? Okay. Yeah. So you guys aren't getting any sort of like down market thing from what we're getting. So, so if there are other specific questions, again, please make sure that Tanya receives them, and then it's just easier for her to batch them to us. We will take a careful look into all of them. Okay, guys, thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Our next presentation is DOT. Ms. Denise Peters will update us on the Freight Initiatives Plan.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Denise Peters. I'm the Director for the Office of Freight Mobility at DOT. Our office manages how trucks operate within the city as we designate specific routes throughout the city. We're here today to give an update on the Smart Truck Management Plan, which is our strategic framework that we're working to develop for how we can provide for more safe and efficient environmentally responsible movement of goods within the city. I'm joined by my team member here, Steve Solecki from DOT, as well as other folks from the Borough office. So what I'll just go through a little bit today is to talk through our overview of the project, talk about some of our key findings citywide, as well as key insights within the Brooklyn Borough, talking through some of our toolkit or measures of effectiveness that we'd like to explore, and then also talk through our next steps. So as we start to think about what it means, freight movement means within a city, it really is a conversation about livability. In order for New York to sustain the economic vitality here and for New York City to continue to support its growth, we need to manage how goods get into the city. And that's essentially the lifeline of the city. Predominantly, a lot of the trucks that are operating, the goods that are being delivered in New York City is delivered by trucks. So, you know, the sustainability aspect of making sure we can dine in and go to restaurants and all that is really impacted by how we get those goods. And to that end, we've developed a vision for enhancing the economic vitality of New York City and quality of life for all New Yorkers by making sure that we promote safe, equitable, and environmentally responsible movement of goods. We've developed 4 goals that are really anchoring on the strategies that we'll be developing moving forward. The first and utmost importance for DOT as an agency is making sure that we can improve safety for all road users, but specifically looking at how we can really improve truck-related safety throughout the city and also in Brooklyn. Is looking at sustainability and responsible. So fostering a sustainable and environmental movement of goods is really hitting at how can we improve air quality, how can we improve emissions, and the major externalities that are typically associated with truck movements within a city, and how can we make our communities more livable while still managing those demands. Third, looking at efficiency in a freight movement. We have a constrained network in terms of where trucks can operate within the city. We also have to figure out how we can make that a lot more efficient through reduction in congestion and other measures that can really help at reducing the demand during the peak periods. And last, partnerships and knowledge. That's a critical importance for us as we engage with the public sector, private sector, the trucking industry, as well as the community. Striking those balances, really making sure that we are all aware of the rules and regulations, but also making sure that we develop those partnerships to really work to reduce the impact on the community is critically important. So speaking to some of the stats citywide, there's a significant increase of trucking activity that we likely see in terms of the volume that's coming into Brooklyn. By and large, there are about 90% of goods are delivered by trucks within the city. In Brooklyn, we're expected to see a 40% increase in that number of tonnage, and that's by 2045, so that's 84.4 million tons of goods being delivered by trucks. But what does that mean? We are all contributing to this growth in freight deliveries. As freight demand grows, we see it's really fueled by the growth in population, the numerous number of jobs that are coming in within the city, and supplying a lot of the needs for the workers, the restaurants, the hospitals, the schools, and other businesses that are operating within the city. As the population continues to grow, we'll likely see that increasing. Brooklyn has the largest share of population amongst all the other boroughs. It's 2.6 million, so that's about a third of the population, really generating a lot of the general just demand, and it has a labor force of about 1.8 million folks. So all of these factors really come into play in terms of how we look at the demand. Also, it's really, again, it's up to the city to think about how we can better manage that, working with the communities as well as other the private sector. So we know that the population is increasing. We know that we're going to be seeing more goods coming into the city, but there's no significant expansion of our roadway network. What that means is that we really have to make sure that we're managing the way that goods get delivered in a more efficient manner. Touching on a part that's part of all of our lives now today. 10 years ago, we weren't having this conversation about the impact of e-commerce, but today we're seeing that by and large, we've seen a 9.1% of the retail sales in the U.S. Is related to e-commerce, and we've seen about a 15% annual growth ever since. And you see this trajectory continues to go up. 41% of New Yorkers receive a delivery at their home at least once a week, and that's significant. We see that as a convenience for us in terms of getting deliveries, but on the other hand, what we're seeing globally and citywide is that that's creating additional truck trips on the roadway and also in other areas where we typically won't see trucks. The way that our truck route network was designed was really to connect ports and major facilities, industrial business zones, into those major commercial centers. But now we're seeing trucks going into residential areas to service that additional demand. We're seeing P-pods of the likes, the Fresh Directs, all those online services that are convenient to us. What we have to manage, on the other hand, is the transportation network. And also, just adding another point, just-in-time delivery. As we want, faster service to get our goods in terms of 2-hour delivery or what have you, we're seeing the industry respond by moving a little bit closer to the customer. So in Sunset Park area, we've seen Amazon put a fulfillment center there. And that means that if you want your delivery as a rush delivery within 2 days, that they are stocking at the mid-mile location to service you as a customer. So they're moving closer and closer as we see that demand continue. Within the borough, today Brooklyn sees about 73,000 trucks crossing its boundaries. We're expected to see an additional 44,000 to 75,000 citywide in terms of daily trucks with the additional tonnage by 2045. So that's a significant number of trucks coming into the city to service our demand on a daily basis. Multiple road users competing for limited curb space certainly is a challenge for us. What we looked at is generally where are we seeing a lot of the truck trips in the city. And in terms of the density, the darker colored areas are where we see the highest intensity of that truck activity. And that's mostly here in the Sunset Park area. We'll see the Williamsburg area, as well as some parts of Eastern Europe as we've seen some recent developments with the Gateway Phase 1 and Phase 2 really increasing. But by and large, we see a lot of that activity in the Sunset Park area. And that's really presenting a lot of challenges for us as we work to address these increased growth. But we also want to highlight the fact that we're seeing a lot more of these areas lighting up. And this is what I alluded to in terms of the increased growth and trucks going into other types of areas within the city to service that demand. Over half of the demand is primarily coming from the retail industry, but also another portion of that is coming from the industrial zone areas, where we have about 6 of the industrial business zones within the city, and that accounts for about 20% of the land coverage in Brooklyn. As we pivot to looking at some of the impacts of truck activity, we look to looking at safety. We looked at truck crashes between 2003 and 2014, and specifically within Brooklyn, there were about over 200,000 truck-related crashes, but only 6% of that were with a vulnerable road user. By and large, we see that the largest percentage is with an automobile, which is indicated by the blue area here, but we still have severe crashes that are associated with pedestrians and bicycles, which is the vulnerable road users, yes.
Is that because they were in the wrong locations, these trucks were like hitting a bridge?
So we looked at trucks, by and large, if trucks were operating off route, on a local truck route over a through truck route, and that distribution is almost equal in terms of off route versus on a truck route, on a local truck route versus the through truck route. This also takes into account the other portion. It's not listed here. Other vehicles could be with a fixed object or a structure. Bridge strikes is a critical issue within Brooklyn. We see a lot of that activity in the Bronx, but in Brooklyn along the Belt Parkway where trucks are prohibited from using that facility. So we've seen about 58 bridge strikes between 2010 and 2016. Most of them were predominantly along the Belt Parkway. But what we want to highlight here is even though there's a smaller sliver in terms of the truck-related crashes with vulnerable road users, it's still a significant impact that we should be working to address. And our goal was really to get that number down to 0. As we pivot to talk about, other externalities, we want to highlight the fact that we understand that there are concerns associated with environmental impacts and equity. While these trucks are servicing are providing goods and services to our region, there's also that, really that impact that the community feels on a more personal level. And this map shows you that a lot of the Brooklyn area is really covered in terms of the diesel particulate matter. Trucks contribute about 11% of the transport-related greenhouse gas emissions and 3% of total emissions. These exhausts, it does increase particulate matter, and there's certainly a lot of interventions that can be done to really improve that. We look at environmental impact and equity. We started overlaying some of the different areas in terms of where minority populations were concentrated, also looking at the poverty levels and seeing how those overlap with where we're seeing a lot of the truck volumes in that area. More than half of our borough, in terms of Brooklyn, is located in a potential environmental justice area, and that's a major concern for us. As we continue to grow, we have to manage that as well. And the particular affected areas are Sunset Park, East New York area, and the Williamsburg area. These neighborhoods are located near these particular facilities, freight activity centers, and they are impacted by truck intrusion, air quality, and noise. As we pivot to looking at compliance, it's really kind of understanding how are trucks really operating on our network. This is a proxy for the best that we have at the moment to really evaluate what's happening citywide. By and large, we see that violations are down between 2011 and 2017, but that doesn't necessarily give us a clear picture. In Brooklyn, which is indicated by the blue, this blue line here, we see in general that this is tapered down a bit. The top chart parking violations were either blocking traffic or blocking a parking lane, which you typically see as a result of double parking. And it indicates that, particularly in the outer boroughs, we see there are areas where they're underserved in terms of loading zones, so trucks typically are double parking rather than getting access to the curb. So that in itself doesn't really impact, doesn't really provide us for improved street efficiency. Those are areas that we're looking to address. Off-road violations are down overall, but again, as I say, this is just based on where we have seen the violations and where NYPD have positioned their resources. There can be other violations elsewhere, and this is where it comes into play, where we think about what are the resources that are currently available within NYPD's truck enforcement unit, and how can they work to strategically deploy that. What we've done so far, we've received some information online on our feedback portal. There's still more time to provide some information, which you'll find at the end of the presentation, is that we looked at some key origin destinations within Brooklyn for truck trips, and we identified corridors that weren't on the network that we see a lot of certain activity. So there's a portion of Flatlands Avenue between Pennsylvania Avenue and Fountain Avenue that's not a part of the truck route network, but we see a lot of that activity. They're servicing the other portion of the industrial business zone. We see other areas like Pitkin Avenue, Avenue J, and Bushwick Avenue, but we know there are potentially other locations as we continue to improve our monitoring. We're looking to hear from you and from your community members about areas where we typically see a lot of that cut-through traffic. There should be a distinction made in terms of local truck traffic. They are allowed to veer off of the truck route network to make a final destination. However, there are trucks that are using certain routes to bypass a congested corridor, and that's where it's not appropriate, and we work to improve compliance in that area. We also took a look at, based on some limited truck GPS data, where we're seeing trucks parking and for extended hours. Particularly, I want to pivot to the longer term parking where we see for more than 8 hours, up to 72 hours. We see a lot of that activity is generally concentrated in the Sunset Park area, some slivers along the East New York IBZ, and then also near the North Brooklyn IBZ. So if there are specific corridors or areas where you see a lot of that activity happening, please let us know. Certainly, trucks aren't allowed to park overnight, and that's illegal citywide. But we're also faced with a challenge. They aren't allowed to park on street, and particularly in residential areas. But we're also seeing a challenge where a federal mandate was handed down in December of 2017 last year that mandated electronic logging devices. So in general, there's a federal rule for trucks. They are allowed to drive 14 hours. But 11 hours, they need to take a break. They are mandated to take a break. It's a certainly safety concern because if there's driver fatigue, they can certainly cause additional undue harm to other road users. So they're required to pull over and take a break. The challenge is that within New York City, there is no off-street public parking facility besides the one that's at JFK. And that's usually always full. So we do have a challenge in terms of supply and where we're seeing a lot of that trucking activity, yes.
The only location that they can go. However, we have a chronic location in our district, which is on Atlantic Avenue near the Boys and Girls High School.
Okay.
So they park overnight, and they're supposed to be going, I believe, by 7 a.m. However, they stay for several days, several weeks at a time. During the winter time, when the snow removal, they're there. They take the front part off, and they're gone for a long period of time. And we've had a discussion with PD about this, and some of the drivers are saying it's cheaper for them to get a ticket from PD than to go find a parking location. So I think something needs to be done, maybe more locations other than JFK, so they can, legally park.
Right.
And, that might alleviate some of the problems.
Right, and we see that not just a Brooklyn issue, we see that as a citywide issue. They have recently started enforcing the mandate, the federal mandate in April. So we're seeing kind of an uptick in where trucks are parking overnight. And that's a safety and security concern for the community. So we are working to see how we can identify any innovative solutions working with the private sector for off-street development so that we can take some of those trucks off the road. But the problem is really understanding the nature of what's happening. Some trucks we're seeing have a license plate that's registered in New York, and then we're also seeing some that are outside of New York. So understanding the different nuances with what's happening is really going to be critical for us as we move forward. We know the problem areas and where they are, but we're also looking to hear back from you about where else that exists. Yeah.
Something I encountered last year was we had a flatbed truck that was abandoned on Coney Island Avenue by Kings Highway.
Which avenue?
Coney Island Avenue and
Okay.
Kings Highway.
Mm-hmm.
And people were concerned. It was there for a while. Brooklyn's NYPD does not have the facility to hold a tow truck
Right.
for a truck. We had to wait for Manhattan to be available.
Okay.
So we don't have the equipment here in Brooklyn should something like that occur, and that's a problem. We should have something with the influx that we're getting of trucks now.
Right. Thank you.
It's an NYPD issue, but I'm just making you aware of it.
Right, and that is another part of it. If we need to also increase our enforcement, then we should have the capacity to do some of that as well. And we can certainly talk with our partners at NYPD.
Also, I noticed that trucks tend to park along in residential areas where there's a park or playground. I see that on a daily basis in my neighborhood. And I started off on a campaign of complaining to PD. And PD told me, the two officers that park right in front of the trucks almost every morning to have their breakfast, told me that there were two things. One, it was just off of a truck route, so that they are allowed to turn off, but they turn off to park, not to make a delivery, and they park overnight. And that secondly, a lot of the tickets get thrown out, so they just give up on ticketing these trucks. But it is a real safety concern that they're parking, that they take up almost an entire block along Lafayette Avenue between Nostrand and Tompkins.
I get her complaint.
And it's pretty consistent, especially over long weekends. They're there.
Okay. Well, we're taking down these locations, and we'll certainly be following up with our borough office. But these are all important for us to kind of identify as additional areas that the data may not necessarily tell us. But thank you very much.
It does seem clear that a depot would be really valuable in Brooklyn, and since CV7 isn't here, I'd like to volunteer their district. Because Jeremy also, that's Sunset Park, and so it seems
Fully
like a good
aware.
location.
Fully aware.
Making you all aware that it pays to come,
That's
so
right.
Sean can.
That's all right. I've done it in front of Jeremy too. But this is really interesting and a great presentation, so thank you, Denise.
Sure.
I wonder, so a few things have come to mind, and one is that it seems as though the city is being very reactive to this occurrence, and I wonder if there's some proactivity. We've seen a great deal of change in the culture in terms of things like using plastic bags at grocery stores when people were informed of the impact, and I wonder if, you know, every time somebody's sitting in a traffic jam and they're annoyed that they can't get through, you know, if they would then make the connection, oh, and then the 5 orders I have pending with Amazon, you know, are lending, you know, to the situation. So I wonder if there's more of an education campaign in the works, or if that would be considered. And then I also wonder if, because we are so dense and we are ordering so many things, it seems like we have no influence on truck routes and delivery times. And when I've asked some of our problem locations, can't you ask your deliveries to your deliveries to come at a different time of day, so it's not in the middle of school dismissal? That no, we're at the mercy of their routes. But why should that be when we have so many customers that we're delivering to these companies, that there shouldn't be more of an impact or influence on them making nighttime deliveries, for instance, rather than middle of the day deliveries? And then I'm also wondering to what extent DOT is coordinating with some of the rail mobility studies and the shipping mobility studies, because that might be able to mitigate some of the impact. And then my final comment or question is the extent to which routes in New York City are being reconsidered because of resident patterns or delivery patterns. I know there was a 20th Street study. If you look in my district, the different, Church and Caton, one is through and one is local, but they're used in the opposite ways that they're actually mapped, and neither one of them move. This idea that a truck is going off route to avoid congestion, there is no avoiding congestion. So is there a route study in the works now? Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for indulging all that.
Okay. So let me get through some of these, but I do have the 4 points that you raised, and I'll respond to them accordingly. In terms of community concerns, we've heard about these key issues within Brooklyn. Off-route trucks, residents would likely want to see a little bit more loading zones, and some have also voiced the idea of potentially looking at loading zones in residential areas because of a lot of the e-commerce deliveries, because we see shorter, and this is more for your parcel companies, we see shorter, narrower roadways, and those trucks are coming in, they're double parking, and then they're blocking up the whole street. So that's an idea that other folks have mentioned. And also to your point about off-hour deliveries, that was brought up. So I'll speak to a lot of those as we move forward. And ultimately also enforcement is also key. What we have in terms of, as we're looking at what are tools that we have at our disposal, what are some things that we can do to take action to really alleviate some of this, is there's a wide range of actions, whether it be looking at policy, regulations, enforcement actions, street and building design, as well as any other partnerships, really how we can start to leverage some of those tools moving forward. Off-hour, what's happening in Brooklyn so far, we know there's some activity that's happening with off-hour deliveries, particularly in some areas. Some folks in Borough Park are actually doing some deliveries off hours. There's also work to be looking at bridge strike reduction, where we have put on some markings on the Belt Parkway for trucks to avoid them. If you drive near the 17th Avenue pedestrian crossing, you'll see new signs that we've actually put on the Belt Parkway to warn trucks about not using the Belt Parkway, as well as a variable message sign to deter them to get off the Belt Parkway. So we have been working to do that. We're also looking to expand the Clean Truck program. This was a major success in the Bronx, where we actually were able to replace older trucks, 500 older trucks that service mostly the Bronx from Hunts Point area, but all parts of New York City. And we're looking to see where we can expand that. A great area for that would be Sunset Park. Off-road activity and other activity efforts, those are areas that we're looking to continue to advance. As you mentioned, congestion reduction through off-hour deliveries is a critical point of that. We'll be actually making an announcement within a coming weeks about our expansion and the launch of that program. Our target at the moment is Midtown Manhattan, the CBDs, downtown Brooklyn, Flushing, as well as Jamaica and Queens, and other parts of Lower Manhattan, but we are certainly working to shift deliveries from the peak periods to less congested periods, and that's typically between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. So we're actually working to launch that program now, and that's actually coming up very soon. So we'll be looking to hear about that in the upcoming weeks through our office. Other items that we have at our disposal is also using of technology, working with NYPD, and then also dissemination of educational materials. So we do publish our truck route map. We're working to do an update at the end of this year so that we can have more dissemination of that to the trucking industry as well as other folks. Looking at how we can improve truck signage. That also does impact where trucks go. So any potential rule changes that we will be looking at is on a continuum basis. We know that by and large, the truck route network has not changed in about 10 years, and that's not in keeping with what's happening with the land use that we see in New York City. Land use changes and demand. And we also have safety and education and outreach programs, which is our Truck's Eye View program. We're actually going to be in Sunset Park on Saturday at the Summer Plaza's weekend walks, and we'll be there to talk about this program as well as any additional initiatives for free. cleaner air, I spoke to the Clean Truck Program and alternative fuel incentives. And then last but not least, partnerships and stakeholder engagement. That's speaking to some of the points that you raised. Reducing freight footprint. Everyone can help, whether it be your home, your office, or advocate. And this is speaking to kind of the education campaign that you alluded to. And this is part of our effort that we'll be working to continue more of that moving forward. So speaking to kind of the 4 points you listed, education campaign, looking at how we can restrict deliveries off hours, and DOT working to coordinate with other agencies for multimodal access for freight. And then the last is freight routes being reconsidered. Caton Avenue, you mentioned Church Avenue, and also 20th Street on behalf of CB7. So education campaign, we've done a lot of work there, but we're certainly looking to do more of that. In terms of the delivery times for truck routes, a lot of the changes that we see are on the receiver side. They're the ones that control when certain deliveries come. So a lot of that outreach will be talking to the receivers so that we can help them rethink their delivery schedule and overcome potential issues that they may face to do that shift. Some of them are labor issues with contract agreements. Some of them, in terms of certain businesses, they may have issues with accepting certain deliveries in the off hours if they have a particular off-street loading dock. So there are certain areas that we can certainly work with them on, but it's going to be more of a voluntary program where we're proactive in terms of reaching out to the businesses as well as the transporters who are delivering to many different locations citywide. So that's certainly something that you'll be hearing about within the upcoming weeks. As well as the coordination aspect, we are working with EDC to see how they can work to reduce some of that impact, particularly in heavily trucked areas. So that's something that they'll be looking to help bolster, since they are responsible for how we can transfer items for rail or barge. And yes, some routes will be reconsidered. We have to look at that again as an ongoing basis because we're not seeing less trucks, we're seeing more, so we have to figure out how we can distribute that truck traffic in a way that's still safe, equitable, and environmentally responsible. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question. One of the issues that, well, number one, my name's Marnie Elias Pave. I'm the district manager at Community Board 11. And one of the issues that we have in the Bath Beach community is that as more residents are utilizing e-commerce, the last leg of delivery is at the postal service. And what we're seeing is our post office has an increase of trucks being stored. And they don't have off-street locations, so they're being stored on our residential streets. Will you be looking at that at all the post offices and how they're storing their vehicles and their routing?
So that's certainly something that we've been working to make better connections with the U.S. Postal Service. They operate a little bit more differently because they're on the federal level and they distribute to almost every location. But we see that as a major part of the puzzle, where for the last mile they deliver somewhere around 50% of those packages, sometimes from UPS as well as FedEx and DHL. So that's certainly another part of the puzzle that we'll be working to continue those relationships with them. Another item is looking at other types of alternative modes in terms of delivery, like cargo bikes. We've seen that and tested in other models in Europe as well as other parts in the US. About a month and a half ago, I believe, there was an announcement by the mayor in terms of working to see how we can clarify the rules with respect to pedal assist versus throttle assist. That's a major barrier that the industry has identified for them actually operating a cargo bike, which is a more environmentally friendly solution for the service residential areas. So those are some areas that we'll be looking to see how we can potentially pilot that in the future. But yes, thank you so much for your points. Any other questions? To wrap, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to piggyback on what Marnie had said in dealing with the post office situation. In our district, we actually met with some of our posts, and they're looking for central locations.
Okay.
But our board also recently, we did support additional truck loading area for our post office around the perimeter of the post office and was denied that request. So looking at that in the future and working as this e-commerce business, continues to grow, planning, I think, within our respective districts. We recently had a borough-wide meeting, Borough South meeting with the police, and I think one of the top issues was the commercial parking, and some of the larger vehicles that aren't even permitted, 53 feet and more, are being parked on our residential streets. I know in our district, illegal parking overall is our #1 complaint, but I would say commercial parking is really growing up there as well. And these are these large trailers that are parked, as Carolyn said, by parks, by areas where people exercise, and it's becoming a greater problem. So looking at solutions, I think, is important for us in BK10 as well.
Great. Thank you very much. To wrap up, we'll be working to finalize our citywide as well as borough-specific plans in the late summer, and we'll be working with the community as well as public sector and private sector to implement these initiatives. Just to be clear, this is like a strategic plan that we're developing, and each of the strategies that we develop here, as we roll that out, will likely be coming back to the community for these. So this is not the first and the last time that you'll be hearing from us. We're working to do a lot more of that engagement and intervention as we move forward. I want to thank you for your time and your comments throughout the presentation. I did take a lot of notes here, as well as Steve, so we'll be certainly following up with the borough office. And yes, sorry.
So Atlantic Avenue, Eastern Parkway to Pennsylvania, that ramp,
Yeah.
they currently doing an upgrade of that ramp, but maybe once it's completed, you can do some more signage for the trucks.
Okay.
Because a lot of time they don't know they can go under the train trust.
Okay.
And they have to wait now for PD to back them out and backs up the traffic. So
Okay.
maybe from on the Eastern Parkway side,
Right.
signage saying, I believe the height was there, but just saying
Additional
that.
signage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's certainly something that we're looking to improve. We see areas where we've seen misplaced tractor trailers where they get up to the restriction, but they don't go through because they know they can't go.
Right.
And then they'll wait for
They have to
MIPD
wait
to
for
pull
PD.
them back. But that does have an increased delay for other road users. So we
Exactly.
see that as an issue, and we'll definitely identify that as a
Thank
follow-up
you.
action item. All right. I want to list our contact information here. You can certainly go to our website, www.nyc.gov/trucks. You can learn about all of our initiatives, including the off-hour delivery program that we'll be working to launch within the upcoming week, as well as our feedback portal for just location-specific information. And we can certainly share the presentation with the borough office, and you can have this contact information here. Our feedback portal link is also on our website, so this is just redundancy of putting that information there. But certainly want to thank you for your time and your feedback, and thank you, Tanya.
Sure, no problem. Thanks. Thanks again. Let's give Denise a round of applause. Sure. Is there a representative from City Planning?